Good morning, and thank you for having me. This is one of my favorite things to talk about is this genetic risk and what it is, how important it is for women to be aware of this. Not everybody meets criteria for doing this, but you certainly should know so that you can, be aware of there are programs, or this program is available to patients and their families to evaluate whether or not they are at high risk or at an average risk for developing cancer. I'm going to refer a lot of this to both breast. Some of it may be just specific to breast, but this program covers all cancers, and it's open both to men and women. The Genetic Risk Assessment Program offers counseling and testing for individuals and their families who are at an increased risk for developing cancer. By understanding this cancer risk, patients can take ownership or a proactive step towards reducing their risk. For patients who've already had breast cancer or any cancer, knowing whether or not they carry a gene mutation can actually make a difference in how they are treated. There are certain medications that can be used for people that are genetic mutation carriers. So the goal of the program is really just in a crowd of people, especially to find out who is it that would be developing, who are at high risk for developing cancer. So what we'll talk about this morning is just genetics 101, really, really basic. I don't want to bore you. Sporadic versus family versus hereditary. What does that mean? Everybody thinks that, oh yeah, my mom had breast cancer, so I'm gonna get it. Or, it's genetic. But I'll explain a little bit about what the differences are. And then we'll talk about the clues. What does that say? Clues and red flags, sorry, I'm reading from up there. And what are we looking at? Why are we singling out individuals for genetic risk assessment and testing? And then the key components of a risk assessment. What happens when you come in to see me? What are we looking for? What are we talking about? And how does your family history and your personal history determine whether or not you meet the criteria for testing? And finally, we're going to just put it all together. So this is a busy slide, but what I do want to just bring out is that 1 in 3 men and 1 in 2 women will develop breast cancer over their lifetime up to the age of 80. So we're looking, when we talk about lifetime, we talk about up to the age of 80. If you're 40, we want to know what your lifetime risk is from the time from 40 to 80. So, not all cancers are created equal, okay? A majority of the cancers that we diagnose are just sporadic. In other words, they happen. There's no family history, or it's just that one person in the family that just happens to have developed the cancer. The second cancer is familial. Now, this is what most people are familiar with. In other words, grandma, mom, and aunt all had breast cancer. And that's not as high or a bigger group as the sporadic group. Now, the smallest group is what we call hereditary cancers. There's a gene mutation that runs in the family that we know that explains the cancers in the family, and is also putting that individual, if they don't have cancer, at higher risk. Can I turn this on? Can you hear me okay without this? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot we were on Facebook. Okay. So, on this slide, it's going to look a little bit busy, but cancers are complicated. There's not a one-size-fits-all reason why we develop it. So it could be age, getting older, the environment, just whether we're exposed to it inhaling the toxins, touching them, or even eating them. Other things, smoking, alcohol, whether or not you exercise, type of diet you eat, and of course, the big thing, family history. So the basics for, the basic unit or thing is of an organism is the cell. And this is very, very, hopefully not too complicated. But each cell, you know, we get a gene from mom and a gene from dad. These genes are the blueprint for which, you know, determines our eye color, our height, our weight, you know, whether or not we can stick our tongues out and roll them versus somebody that can't. So these are all genetic pieces, and these are information that we have in our bodies. So when we're looking at this, this is each chromosome, each gene has a specific job, if you will. And if these genes have a mistake in it, then it's not going to be able to do its job. You can go forward. Yeah. So when I'm talking about mistakes, let me see, can you forward the, there you go. Each gene has a spelling, okay? So if you think of the fat cat ate the rat, and all of our genes are, if you were to read it in a sentence or a paragraph, there are some mistakes that can occur. Some of them do not they make sense, but they're a change, but it's okay. It's not gonna cause us to be at risk for anything. So in the first example, the K is changed from the C, but it sounds the same. It's not, you know, anything that's gonna be, say, detrimental to the individual. Let's just say that that particular change may be eye color. In the second one, this one is where there's something that's inserted. So you can see there that there are proteins that are inserted, so this may be something that may put an individual at risk. And the third one is where the information is missing. So there's maybe some proteins there that are missing, and in that case, then again, it may change the individual's risk for developing the disease. Okay, so when we look at cancers, hereditary cancers, we're looking at it in how it is inherited. So all you need is one broken gene from either parent, and each first-degree relatives, that means that the children will have a 50% chance of inheriting that gene. So if you look at this couple here, dad actually is the gene mutation carrier. So half of the children will inherit that particular gene, and then the other half will not. So let's talk a little bit about the key components of the risk assessment. Patients always ask me, what are you looking for? I mean, I already know I have cancer or there's cancer in my family, so what's the big deal? Well, here's what most of us want is the how to prevent, or it is the prevention of cancer, okay, identifying individuals, and early detection, okay? So this is the part that we want to get out there and make sure that women or men get the appropriate screening. This is where we can, you know, make a huge difference in finding cancers early. And then the second part of this continuum is for those that have developed cancer. So you're looking at someone who now has the disease, but what is their risk for developing a second cancer? For example, gene mutation carriers have up to a 60% risk for developing a second cancer, either in the same breast or in the opposite breast. So this is why we test women, because this is where their decision-making process comes in. And then, of course, we're looking at how are we going to treat these women? There are certain medications that we can advocate for and make sure that they take. Options are maybe surgeries that would reduce their risk. So these are all things that we talk about, but we're also including everything, including the risk assessment. So this is a whole continuum, and we're looking at everyone from start to finish, even through survivorship. So there are a couple ways that we refer to my program, or our program, I shouldn't say mine, is one for a referral from your primary care physician. So, they can either fax a copy or send, a copy of a referral, or they can send it through the medical record. The second group of individuals that we actually get referred from are women who are seen at the breast center. Now, women who come in, we know women come in for their annual mammograms. We're hoping that we are going to be able to screen them all so that we know, hey, in 20 women that we did today, 5 of them were considered at an elevated risk, and maybe they should come and see me. The appointments, once you make the appointment, we make it easy. We send you a link, and you fill out the information on the tablet or on your phone. And then by the time you get in to see me, all of that information is already ready to go. So we're not sitting there trying to collect family history while we're sitting together. All of that's been done. So it makes it a little easier. So what's in a consult? What do we talk about? What are some of the things that I look for? We look at your personal history. What is, do you smoke? Do you drink? Have you had an abnormal biopsy? Sometimes those abnormal biopsies can actually put you at an elevated risk for cancer. For example, if you've had something called atypia, that will put your risk up to 2.5 to 5 times more. We look at your family history, talking about, who had what. We're looking at certain cancers, whether or not they group together. And then based on all of that, we are also talking about what are your risk factors? What are some of the things that maybe you have, what you can do to reduce your risk? Those that meet certain criteria will be offered genetic testing. And then those that don't, but still meet, that are still at an elevated risk, we will, talk to them about, you're at high risk, you don't need genetic testing, but let's talk about how other things can help with early detection. So risk factors, what are risk factors? They are anything that an individual is exposed to, characteristics, a lifestyle, it could be, that increases the likelihood of developing a disease. This is busy, so we're not gonna, go into too much of it, but this is how I look at it, and this is how I explain it to the patients when they come in. Looking at what you start out with. Being female and getting older. Unfortunately, that's the bottom line. That's what we start out with. Women have a higher risk for breast cancer, and as we get older, our risk increases. If you have dense breast tissue, if you've ever heard that when you went in for a mammogram, that is also a risk factor. Any personal history of breast cancer, we want to know. Why? Because we want to prevent the next one if it's going to happen. And then the third one is race and ethnicity, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. Family history, basically groups of cancers, young cancers. If you have a grouping of cancers, for example, say aunt had breast, mom had ovarian, uncle had prostate, grandma had pancreatic cancer. Those cancers all in one side of the family is already a red flag for me. It's like, wow, you've got all these different cancers, but they do signal a need for genetic testing, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. You could go quickly on these. Reproductive risk factors, when you start your periods early, when you stop your periods late, okay? Say you start at 11, and then your menopause is, say, at 55 or 58. This is all about the exposure of those natural hormones. So women who have had children versus women who don't incur a little bit more, women who do not have children incur a little bit more of a risk than those that do. Why? Because of again, the exposure to those natural hormones. Lifestyle, I'm pretty sure Tony will get into that. But, you know, again, this is, you know, alcohol intake. It has been shown that women who drink more than a glass a day will have an increased risk for developing cancer. Not just breast, but other cancers as well. Overweight, that goes into hormonal exposure again. Postmenopausal women who have an elevated or BMI, okay, who are overweight, the fat actually is stored or is made by the fat tissue, estrogen. The estrogen is from fat. So if you're supposed to not have estrogen and you know, are overweight, there is a production of estrogen that you shouldn't be having. A physical inactivity, and then alcohol and smoking. The other risk factors are just abnormal biopsies, women who've had lymphoma or a type of a cancer in which they had chest radiation as between the ages of in their teens until their 30s, the breast tissue is continuing to make changes, and the radiation that they use to be treated for the other cancer puts them at a high risk for also developing breast cancer. Okay. Just while radiation, there it is. Okay, next slide, please. So when we look at, like I mentioned earlier, the most single important risk factor is aging and being female. So, you know, the older we get, the higher the risk. Next slide. Gender. So women, of course, are, you know, have a higher risk versus men. But, you know, men also can develop breast cancer. It's not uncommon, but they do get breast cancer. So let's look at family history and why that's important. A couple of things to keep in mind. One, when a woman has a risk that's higher, it's because of a first, second, or third degree relative. So we're talking about mother, sister, daughter. Also, women who have a mother, well, I just said that. And then the risk is even higher if more than one relative is on the one side of the family. So when you're looking at cancer in an individual or multiple cancers in one side of the family. For example, mom had breast and ovarian cancer, or like I said earlier, multiple family members, mom with breast, grandmother with ovarian, aunt with pancreatic cancer. All of those are grouped either in an individual or as a group. One thing we also like to note is if somebody had a mutation, they were tested before, that is an absolute, let's get you tested to see if you carry that risk, the same risk, and it will explain the cancers that are occurring in your family. Remember I said culture. One of the groups, Ashkenazi Jewish, even I had a hard time learning to say that. This is a group of individuals that are from Eastern Europe. So when you look at no, I lost my train of thought. Can you move the next slide? There you go. So Ashkenazis versus Sephardic. Sephardic is another group of with Jewish roots. But the Ashkenazi are actually from Eastern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, where Hungary, Poland, Romania. These are individuals that are at a higher risk for developing the disease, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But basically, about 90% of Ashkenazi Jewish in this country are Ashkenazi Jewish. Sephardic, on the other hand, are those individuals that are coming from Spain, Portugal, Northern Africa. Again, that's another branch of Judaism. So when I ask an individual, are you of Ashkenazi Jewish descent? We are looking because we know that these individuals have a slightly higher risk for developing cancer because 1 in 40 men or women actually carry a BRCA mutation, okay? BRCA, if some of you, is the BRCA gene is what most people are aware of or know it by the name. So this, we can skip this slide, please, but this is basically just a list of what I'm looking for when I look at someone's family history. But what I tell most people is this: there are 4 things that you need to be aware of. Number 1, rare cancers. That means ovarian cancer is considered rare. Male breast cancer. If you have a brother or a father with breast cancer, that is an automatic, you know, let's talk about genetic testing. Multiple cancers, again, like I said, in an individual or in a family member. Young cancers, anyone diagnosed under the age of 50, you must have some, you know, knowledge of individuals who are diagnosed in their late 30s, early 40s. The youngest one I've seen is 29 that was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then, of course, ethnicity. So multiple cancers in an individual or on one side of the family that correlate with each other. So this is essentially what I'm talking about, is hereditary breast and ovarian cancer syndrome, which means that you have this in your personal history or your family history, breast, ovarian cancer, pancreatic or prostate. But there's also other groupings, for example, Lynch syndrome, which puts you at a higher risk for developing colorectal cancers. Ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. So that's why we're looking at that, and these are just examples of a family that would signal either one of these syndromes. So when we take that information, we'll go ahead and you actually fill out the form, and this is what it looks like when you are done filling it out. All the circles are female, all the squares are male. Anything filled in means that they have had a cancer. A slash through it just means that they have that they died from the disease. So this is what is this. It's a lot easier to see it this way versus just listing it on a piece of paper. You can see here just from this example that most of the cancers are on mom's side. So what if you come in and we get a family history and you don't meet any of the criteria for testing? It was just your mom that had breast cancer at 80. Well, you still might be at an elevated risk that could include getting, in addition to an annual mammogram, starting at 40 or 10 years prior to the youngest cancer. So if your mom was diagnosed at 40, we recommend a mammogram starting at 30. And we'll also advocate for an MRI, breast MRIs. We talk about preventative medications. Some women can take tamoxifen, which will reduce the risk for developing breast cancer. And of course, we will talk to you, get you connected with diet, exercise, smoking cessation, alcohol, elimination, all of those things that you can actually have some control over. For those that meet genetic testing criteria, it is done by blood or saliva. So you spit in a tube, or if you can't do that, I can draw your blood. The cost of the testing is generally covered by insurance. And I say this because sometimes when you have a deductible or a share of costs, and those things we can review during the visit. But it's important to know that, even the visit with me is covered under an insurance because it is billed as a doctor's visit. And the results come back in about 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, and I'll send you, we'll talk about what the results are. So, with a negative result, woohoo, we're great, we're negative. That just doesn't mean that you are done and that you are not at an average risk, but still at an elevated risk. So just like those individuals that I talked about earlier that have an elevated risk, we will talk about, let's get you additional screening. Let's get you in for an MRI. If you have a history of colon cancer in your family, let's get you in for an early colonoscopy. Those are things that we can do. We'll talk about medications if patients are interested. And then, of course, lifestyle modification. Now let's talk about if you're positive. That is still good news. Believe it or not, when patients come into my office, they're always worried, oh my God, am I a carrier? Well, the good news is you're sitting in my office doing something about it. And if you are positive, one, it explains the cancer that's running in your family, okay? It explains, why grandma had ovarian and mom had breast cancer. It also tells us that if you don't have cancer, you're in the right place. We can start looking and making sure that you do the right things. We can advocate for more medications if you don't want to do the risk-reducing surgeries. For women that are carriers, BRCA1, BRCA2, their ovaries are at risk too. So what we need to do is talk about, are you done having kids? Because if you're not, let's get going, because we want to try and remove those ovaries by around maybe 40, 45. And then for those individuals who have cancer, that are newly diagnosed, that are here for genetic testing. Okay, so now we know you are a carrier, you're gonna have surgery. You might wanna talk about both. If not, we can, work. In other words, it's a very personal decision, but still, we now can say, okay, your risk now for developing a second cancer in the other breast or in this breast is gonna be higher than someone who's not. The one thing that is difficult to explain and oftentimes hard for patients in general is what we call a variant of uncertain significance. So what that is they don't know. Basically, the lab is still trying to figure out what the heck this change in your gene is. And there could be 100 people that have the same change, but they still can't figure out whether or not it is gonna be in the cancer bucket or not. So this, is sometimes confusing, sometimes a little anxiety producing for patients because they're like, well, it's inconclusive. And that's part of the limitations for genetic testing, is as they continue to change, medicine continues to change, we find a lot of different things. So, basically, I'm gonna, if you could just go through these, because I know that Tony's probably gonna go over most of this. Basically, just making sure that you're doing what you can do to reduce your risk. So it's, basically, watch what you eat, and diets. There's plenty of different diets out there, but, making healthy choices in what you choose to eat. And then the second is exercise. Okay, gotta move it. American Cancer Society recommends that you do either, 150 minutes of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous. I mean, they recommend it to be, every, at least 2 to 3 times a week. Smoking, not a good thing. So if you smoke, let's give you some help to stop. And if you don't smoke, don't start. Alcohol intake, they recommend no more. It's recommended, or just say, this is what I tell the patient: you can have a drink an evening, okay, for women. Men can have 2, but basically 1 alcohol beverage, a shot of liquor, bottle of beer, or 4 ounces of wine. And why do they say that this puts you at an increased risk? Well, it causes a change in the DNA, which can, of course, then change into, developing a disease because it's not able to repair itself. So it's basically making changes in your DNA. I'm going to leave you with one case that I think is helpful. This is I forget how old she is, but she is a woman that came in to see me about 10 or 15 years ago, and she had she was unaffected. She was of Japanese-American ancestry, and she's 42. She has a daughter that was 15, a son 17, and if you see here, her mother had breast cancer and pancreatic cancer. And then her uncle, maternal uncle, had colon, but if you look at her first cousin, she also had breast cancer at 45 and died at 48. So this is a prime example of an individual who meets the criteria for genetic testing. Remember that Akiko is not affected. She has no cancer. She's young, she's healthy. So we did genetic testing on her, and this is what we found. So she's a BRCA2 carrier. So the decision now for her is, what am I going to do? I'm healthy, there's nothing going on, but is she done having kids? We can remove her ovaries if she is, counseling about removing ovaries because her risk for ovarian cancer is high. Bilateral mastectomy, it's a big decision, but it may be something that she is looking to reduce the risk for developing breast cancer at all. She has 2 children and a brother. So those children need to be tested when they reach 21, and so does her brother, in order to determine whether his sons. Yes, boys or men can carry the gene. They can develop breast cancer, they can develop pancreatic or prostate cancer, but if they get married someday or if they have children, those children, again, are at risk for inheriting that gene. So this is really what I advocate for, is just knowing what your risk is. Next slide. So if you look at this one, it just shows that Akiko's, the general population's risk is about, for ovarian cancer, is about less than 1%, right? The lifetime risk for breast cancer for this individual is, already for breast cancer is up to 87%. So what, here's where we look at the graph, we look at the information and make that determination. So doing this can actually save lives. So again, we can skip this one because it's a personal plan of action. Just means that, once we get everything put together, we talk about what we need to do next, and then move forward from there. I will refer the patients essentially to whoever the specialist is. So if they need their ovaries removed and would like to talk to someone, we'll send them to a GYN, send them to a breast surgeon. For people that have Lynch syndrome, the colon genes, then send them to a GI so that they can, up their frequency of their colonoscopies. So essentially, this is part of the screening. It is, and to me, and I know everyone here agrees that early detection is the key. You find it early, it's treatable, and you're over and moving forward. You find it late, it gets more complicated than that. So that's my talk. You can find me there.
Okay, thank you, Maria, for very informative information. Does anyone have any questions for Maria? Go ahead. Asking about an update on preventive surgeries.
So yes, that's still on. I mean, that's what women are counseled on, and in my experience, you know, it just is a very personal choice. I've had a patient who went in and she was in surgery for hours, but she had a bilateral mastectomy and she had a hysterectomy at the same time, you know, in that day. So I've had young women who are not done having children yet. So they will maybe remove their breasts because they can formula feed, right? But they will keep their ovaries in their uterus until they're done having children. So, you know, there's been, it's a choice, but, you know, I really hope that they make sure that they get the appropriate counseling and understand the risk before, you know, doing that.
Okay, so can you request genetic testing even if you don't have a first degree relative?
Yes, there are, we would have to sit down and look at it because your first degree relatives, mom, dad, and then your children. They may not have cancer, or your brothers and sisters, but let's just say mom and her brothers and sisters have all had some sort of cancer, then you know what, it's worth a sit down.
Other questions? Okay, so we're going to take 30 seconds and we're going to ask you to talk amongst yourselves. Tell us something, someone close by to you, something that you learned, something that you found interesting in Maria's talk. Because we want to make sure we solidify what we have. So go ahead, 30 seconds, talk amongst yourselves. All right. It's past 30 seconds and people are still talking, so that lets us know we had a really good presentation. And we want to thank you again, Maria, for sharing your information about genetic testing. Our next presenter is going to be Tony Buck with Monterey Body Zone Fitness. Tony Buck is originally from Hightstown, New Jersey. He moved to the peninsula in 2016. He is currently co-owner of Monterey Body Zone Fitness on Fremont Street, which he has operated with his wife since 2016. And they also run a semi-private group training studio, training over 150 clients a month. And they credit their amazing team of trainers that help run sessions as well. And if you can recall, when Maria was giving her presentation, there was a lot of emphasis on nutrition and fitness and taking care of our bodies. And so it makes absolutely sense for our next presenter to talk a little bit more about the nutrition and fitness connection with keeping ourselves healthy and preventing
I need that to be louder when you clap. Let's go. Come on, clap. Let's go. Sorry, I don't like holding a microphone because I usually have one on my head. Good morning. Let's do this again. Good morning. Jennifer knows in my classes, I like energy, I like talking really loud, so being in the church, I'm gonna try to keep it down today. As they stated, my name is Tony Buck. I do own Body Zone Fitness. Fitness is a passion of mine, and it started at a really early age. 8 years old, I started working out, and it kind of progressed throughout life, in high school, through college, to now adulthood. When fitness really became important in my life was about 2009, when I actually started working in the fitness industry. I was 300 pounds working in the fitness industry in sales. So it's kind of contradictory. Here's this overweight guy talking to you about a membership. But more importantly, what I learned in that initial time there was actually how to build relationships with people. And it really, really established myself as wanting to take better care of myself, but more importantly, taking care of other people. Being obese, I was very scared. I didn't want to go up and talk to people, especially about fitness, especially about nutrition. Had a lot of health issues as well. Being an African-American male, thinking like, oh, I'm healthy, and my doctor would always look at me, you need to lose weight, or else you're gonna die. And so it always resonated, but I didn't take that initiative until actually I got insulted by somebody that I was showing around to the gym, and my boss had heard it. And in that moment, my boss actually kicked my door open and started yelling at me. And I said, look, I don't need this right now. And he said, you don't have a choice. You have two options. You can start working out today, or you can pack your office up and get out of my building. And from that moment on, that kind of progressed my life into health and fitness and wanting to help people. So at my gym, that's what we focus on. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter how fit you are. It matters about, do you want the help? Because everybody wants to lose weight. Everybody wants to live a long life. Everybody wants to have less aches and pains when they get up in the morning, but you don't want to take the initiative to do it. And so when you walk inside of our building, that's what we talk to you about. It's not about, can you do a push-up? Can you squat? Can you do this? It's, do you want to live to your 70, 80, 90 years old? Most people do, but when it comes down to showing up, changing their habits, changing their minds, most importantly, because that's where fitness starts. It starts here. We all get up, we do various things, but it starts here. And so that's what we work with our clients on from day one. Where's your mind at? And going back to that point, my mind wasn't in the realm of wanting to get healthy. But once I started to do it, all of a sudden, my life changed. So like I said, I was 302 pounds. I ended up dropping almost 50 pounds within 6 months. Just because of dedication. See, we all have an expiration date, but we can extend it a little bit further if we take care of ourselves. And so when you walk into our gym, the first thing we do is an assessment, just like Maria. And it's not a physical assessment. I want to see what's been going on in your body. So I have a scale that I spend a lot of money on. Jennifer knows. I know everything once you get off that scale. I know how much you sleep. I can tell if you've been on medication or if you're currently on medications, if you've drank alcohol, if you're not drinking enough water, if you've had an injury some point of your life. Because once we have that information, that gives me the blueprint to help you out. As the memo says, 3,200 clients that my teams have helped train over the last just 6 years. Cancer survivors, kidney transplants, menopause, grandmothers, mothers, daughters, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it does not matter. Fitness should be a part of your life every single day. And it doesn't matter if you're going to a gym or you're doing something on YouTube. How many people go on YouTube to watch a video? Few hands. You know, there's over 1,000 free YouTube channels for exercise. Free. No money. Free. How many of you have kids? How many of your kids exercise or get your kids involved? The most powerful thing that, and it just happened this week, and I took a picture of it, is when I see mothers working out with their daughters. When I see husbands working out with their wives. See, fitness is always built on a community, right? And that's the other part of our gym, is we're a community and we're a family. We support each other. There's no egos in my building. I have one rule. You have an ego, there's a door. You can get out. If you're not here to support, then we don't need you. Because fitness is about being supportive, helping one another, getting stronger, getting healthier in its own way. Let me get back on topic because I can get on a rant. Jennifer knows that. So back to what I was saying in regards to lifestyle, exercise, as Maria had pointed out in her slide, you know, just a few short minutes a day, you can get exercise. 30 minutes. As simple as walking around your neighborhood a couple times. Grabbing 3-pound weights. They're about $8 down the street at Big Five Sporting Goods. Hold them in your hand. Walk around. Because cancer, all these other elements that we have going on in our bodies at any given point can be prevented through exercise. As I mentioned, I have a client right now who is fighting for her life because she has cancer. But she comes 3 days a week. I mean, the woman has been in the hospital, gotten out of the hospital, and showed up to come work out. And I said, why are you here? She's like, because I can't give up. I have to keep fighting. Even though my body is fighting against me, I need to keep going. So with your lifestyle, just think, what do you want to get out of your life? Number one. Do you want to keep having the ailments that are going on? Or do you want to get them fixed? Because exercise can fix them. I've had a herniated disc, bad knee, bad back, everything, because I was overweight for way too long. So it took a lot of damage onto my body. And within a few years, I was actually to get rid of all of those ailments because of exercise. See, exercise has that reverse effect. Just because you have an ailment doesn't mean you need to stop. It means you need to figure out where's this ailment and how can I correct it and what do I need to do. And then talking about nutrition, I always ask this question to my clients. Just by a show of hands, how many of you eat at least 3 meals a day? 2 times a day. 1 time a day? Who doesn't eat at all? Okay, that's good. The 1 time a day, I'm gonna talk to you separately. Okay, we'll talk afterwards. No, eating is important. And when it comes down to nutrition, that is more important than how you're moving your body. Because what you put into your body fuels your body. And if you're always tired, or you're always having that brain fog, or by 2 o'clock you literally hit that wall and you crash, that's your body talking to you about eating more, eating the right things. I was horrible with eating. That's how I got to 302 pounds. I'm from the East Coast. I love cheesesteaks and cheese fries. Sorry, that's just one of my staples. But what I had to learn was how to control those things so my body didn't start to pack on that additional weight, right? So what I started doing was eliminating those things. If you were to look at how many of you eat fried foods? Oof. Soda. Who's a soda drinker? Juice? Ooh, yeah. A lot of things what they call high fructose syrup. You all have heard it. What if you were able to cut just one of those things out each day? Do you think you would feel better or feel worse? If you were to eat one more meal a day, would you feel better or feel worse? So as of Monday, start doing it. Don't wait a month, and just because the holidays are coming doesn't mean anything. I don't want to hear, oh, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving. You can still be on a restriction even on those holidays. Getting into my last point, sleep. I heard a couple, So how many of you get at least 6 hours of sleep? Okay. 7? 7, okay. Anyone get less, like 5, 4 hours of sleep, insomnia? Okay. That plays a part into your health as well. If let's say you're working out, you're eating right, but you're not sleeping right, that affects your body too. Like I told you, on my scale, I can tell when one of my clients has had a bad week of sleeping. And the first question I ask them is, I say, hey, how's your sleeping been this week? Oh, Tony, it's been so erratic. Yeah, I can tell. The first line here tells me that you haven't slept well this week. Sleep is so important because your body needs that rest. That's when your body is burning the most amount of calories. That's when your body is just rejuvenating itself for the next day's work. So ensuring that you get enough sleep is truly, truly helpful. Stress level. Everybody laughing today, okay. Let's see. Stress from 8 to 10. That's really high. Raise your hand. Wow. Okay. 6 and 7, kind of like, I kind of got some stress, but I can manage it. All right, I see a lot of people that don't have any stress at all, so raise your hand because the rest of you, stress is big too. So reducing your stress through exercise and nutrition helps prolong your life. I live a very stressful lifestyle. I run a gym. I have a wife who's a nurse. We have we have a lot of things going on, but we manage our stress. When you start to manage all of those things, your body, again, starts to work in your benefit. If you've never had a stress test, get one. If you have an Apple Watch, it's perfect because it actually shows you your heart rate. The best thing to do to see how your body responds to stress, when you start getting stressed out, if you have an Apple Watch, turn it on and see where your heart rate goes. It's so key to manage that because then when you're through fitness, because then your body can manage it better. So I did a test starting in 2018 on myself because again, I'm always trying to get better at just being healthier. And for a year, I actually tracked my heart rate. Every workout, I tracked every time I did something. And what I started to do was I started to play around with my heart rate so that when I got into those stressful moments, I wasn't panicking. And you can ask my wife, we've been underneath some stressful situations, and she would look at me and go, why are you so calm? I go, I trained for this. So now my body is prepared. I can think more clearly. I'm not having an outburst. How many of you have, you can be hot-headed at one point in time? Raise your hand. Be honest with yourself. Right. But even in those situations, it's still, if you're exercising, exercise is stress on the body, but it teaches you how to control that. It teaches you how to control your blood flow. It teaches you how to take a deep breath, relax. I shouldn't say relax. My wife is watching this. She doesn't like that word, but I said relax. But these are all important things to remember. Yes, you have a question? Yep, yep. Highest point of the day is usually between 8 and 10. It's your cortisol levels. So a lot of times you don't see it, and I suffered from it too. So how I started to discover that I was having those issues was my stomach. Started feeling more bloated, especially early in the morning. Early in the morning is the highest risk when we start to have heart attacks and things of that nature, because I think it was back in 2012, I heard this stat. It's because we're either driving, getting ready for work, just that anxiety of the morning. But your cortisol levels are the indication. If you start to feel like you get a little bit of a headache when those stressful moments come, that's because the adrenaline glands are pumping out that cortisol, which is running through your body. That's how you can really tell when it's coming on. Cortisol is the number one factor why you gain the belly fat, the hip fat, because you're putting yourself under that stress, so your body is naturally doing it. You can't control it unless you know how to, which most of us don't even know. Like you said, most of us don't know that it's happening, but then all of a sudden we start to feel these aches and pains. Take note of those. That is so important. Why am I feeling like this? Getting back to your nutrition, when you eat, I ask my clients this as well. When you're eating something, do you want to go to sleep or do you have energy? Because when you start looking at those signals, that's an indication of something. See, a lot of us just go through life and not picking up on those little signals that our body is starting to throw out to us until it's too late. We go to the doctor, and then the doctor tells us, oh, you have, high this and high that. When your body was telling you the whole time, you just have to understand what you're reading into or what your body is trying to signal. I'm a big proponent of that. I've been like that since I was probably 17 years old. I can tell when my body is having a cold, and in an instant, I am trying to fix it. And I know it sounds weird, but we all have those signs. We just have to pay attention to them, right? So with fitness and exercise, or just exercise, nutrition, there's so many components that we can control. It's about controlling them. How do you gain control? You build habits. Like I said, with the juice, with the eating, when you start putting together a plan, you build those healthy habits, your body starts to respond. You start to feel better about yourself. But more importantly, you start to reduce those factors for like breast cancer or any type of cancer, diabetes, right? All of those things start to slowly come down. And the last thing, basically kind of going into what I led off with, is consistency. Don't do it for 6 months and stop. Say, oh, I did it for 6 months. I'm done. It is a journey. Just keep going. Even on the days where you don't feel like, oh, I don't want to eat healthy, or I don't want to exercise, or I don't want to go to bed early because I need to get this amount of sleep. Just do it. Because the more you do it, the more you train your mind. Again, going back to your mind, your body is going to fall in line with it. And especially I'm speaking because majority of the faces in the room are African American. We need to start exercising. We need to start exercising. Because a lot of the things that I see, especially from my clients who are African American, and then they're usually the first ones to walk out the door. But yet, they're unhappy. Yet, they're still walking around with the same challenges they had. It's about committing. It's committing to yourself. How important is your family to you? If you have kids, some of you raise your hands, you have kids, you have a husband. How important are they to you? And the reason why I'm so passionate about fitness, I lost my best friend 2 years ago at 38 years old to a heart attack. And I've buried more friends in my lifetime, and I'm only 41 years old. I've buried 60 friends in my lifetime from all various reasons. But a vast majority of them because of their health. So when you take care of your health, again, it will take care of you. If you have questions, I'm always available. If you want me to start teaching a class here, I will walk in this building and teach a class. I am a member here, so I have no problem coming here and helping out this community because I want to see everyone. It's not about money for me. It's about helping my community, helping people in general get just to feel better about themselves. That's why I'm passionate about what I do, and I will continue doing it until God says, hey, I got something else for you. But by all means, reach out. If you have questions about your nutrition, exercise regimen, exercise videos, let me know. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Before I sit down, any other questions? Cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tony. Would you guys give him another
Gotta be a little louder than that. Come on.
Thank you so much. So we still have one more speaker who will be going to give you all the opportunity just to take a little break. So we're going to take 5 minutes before we have our last speaker, Allison, come up. And we will reconvene in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, mine was at like 80. Yes.
Everything but meditation. Because
Yes.
I took a class about 10 years ago in meditation, really, because I was stressed out.
Yeah.
And she was telling me, she said, because regardless of whether or not you are doing anything, your mind still make your body go through everything.
Yes.
So she was telling me, she said, cut the tape.
Yes.
And that helped me more than anything because regardless of where I am, she said, does it happen the way you think? If it doesn't, don't think about it. Cut it.
Yes.
And that helped me more with all kinds of stress, everything.
Yes.
So when I get into a stress relationship, I just start breathing.
Yes.
She just taught me how to do all that.
Yeah, I actually used to, and you're so right.
So that was going to ask you a question that you mentioned everything but meditation.
Yes.
And most of the time it starts here.
Yes, and it's a great point because when I took a meditation class at one of my old gyms, and you're right because I was always stressed out because of my job, and so every Wednesday I would take that class and I would get
I
mad.
took it one day a week and it changed
Yes,
my life.
because I fell asleep. I would fall asleep, and that's why I would get hesitant about taking the class because I told the instructor, I said, look, I feel weird because I'm snoring. He goes, no, that's a signal that your body needs that. And you're right. And see, I didn't have notes, so I should have.
And that's okay because I work at the sheriff department.
Okay.
And if we get stressed, you can feel everything
Yes.
going. And everyone at work has said, you are the most peaceful. Because I tell people, I said, most people of us don't take meditation. And I paid $200, and that's the best $200 I ever paid in my life.
Was it local?
It was at one of the hospitals.
Oh.
And they had a nurse come in.
Right.
And she had anyone, you have all kinds of medical problems, anything. It changed everybody. It didn't matter what you started with. Pain, it worked with everything.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize that the brain it starts here. It doesn't matter what you do.
And that's actually a good point too, because I tell my clients, they're like, why do you wake up at 2:30 in the morning? I spend the first 30 minutes meditating. And they're like, why so early? I said, well, why not?
She taught us how to maybe eat, walk, exercise. She taught us how to meditate in every form. When you drive, just punch on the drive.
And Tony Robbins used to, he has the same analogy when driving. Take 5 deep
I was trying to
breaths.
tell my cousin, because she's all stressed out, and she was like, I can't relax. I was like, breathe. And she didn't understand what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But it starts with,
Deep inhale, deep exhale, right? There's with your cousin, there's an app, it's called Better Sleep, but it's
she
designed,
can't sleep or anything because she's in constant pain, but she can't relax. And it's hard to teach someone to relax if they don't know that technique.
right? And that's also affecting because of her stress. That's why she's in pain. Her body is tensing up all the time,
Yes.
right? And she's probably having this pain, that pain, not realizing. But it's called Better Sleep, right? And she can create sounds that help her relax. So, like when I'm on an airplane, like when I first get on, I'm very, oh my god, oh my god. But
But
once
see, that's
we're,
what we really need more so if people hear that. Because see, a lot of people don't do that exercise like that.
Right.
But they learn to really know what's going on inside. And that was she was teaching us. She said, when you feel pain, she said, forget about it. Whatever you feel, just breathe.
yep, center. It's called Finding Your Center.
Yes.
Yeah, yoga. We used to do.
Having me.
You're welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
but you see what I'm saying? Because I noticed that you did everything but that, and that helped me the most.
Yes.
And I do all the other stuff now.
You should have raised your hand because I would have talked about that so much because you are right. It is
Because I was
that.
going to raise my hand, but I said, no, he didn't mention that, so I don't want to bring up this
No,
whole new
right,
topic.
that's what this
because
is
you didn't
for.
touch it all. I'm like, what helped me was meditation, but it was nothing that we do. I went in because I was so stressed.
Yep.
And I said, well, I'm going to try this.
And
And it
look
was
at you
the
now.
best $200.
And keep doing it. And keep doing it.
And even when you don't realize you're doing it, she told us like it was like a, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. Because we did went every once a week.
Yes.
And she did, and it's an English. You don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
But even my boss said to me, she said, you need to calm this person, everything be falling apart, and you just sitting
That's
there
how I
in
am.
peace. She said, you're sitting there in peace.
That's how I am. My family could be running around and I'm just sitting there going,
Because they said it doesn't affect you. She said, if it doesn't, cut it.
yep.
Doesn't affect me, I'm done with it.
80-20 rule of life. That's what my friend's dad taught me that a few years ago. Out of 100% of things that go on around you, you can't control all of it. Just focus on 20% of it and you'll be fine. And I'm like, that's it? Okay.
But he's right, though.
I was gonna say, we have nothing to talk about because you're an Eagles fan, so we cannot talk. So,
What's your team?
Giants. So I'm done with you.
Hey, I
I'm
grew
done.
up in between.
I'm on the East Coast, too.
I'm
and
done. I'm done with you.
It's okay. It's okay.
I like the
When
Eagles.
we bring home this Super Bowl, because we're going to beat you guys. We're going to beat you at least once.
No, I don't think so.
We're going to get you the first time.
What's so funny is my brother's an Eagle fan. I have a sister that's a Cowboy fan. I'm a Giants fan, and the other one is a commander, whatever they are, the Redskins.
Yeah.
Redskin fan.
So you got the whole dynamic. Do you remember?
I'm talking much trash, because we're in second place.
Yeah.
So I'm talking much trash.
Do you
This is our
remember,
best.
I should have asked him the
Chris,
question because
Canty,
I didn't realize that he mentioned everything but meditation.
He's a family friend of ours.
And see, that's
Back
what I asked him
home.
about.
Yeah.
I
You
said,
know what? I
"You're
have
talking about all that
a
other stuff." What
gentleman
he
I
was
worked with, his
meditation
wife.
10 years ago.
Him and Eli
And it
went
really
to
taught
school
me how
together.
Wow.
And I'm just waiting for him to get Eli out. I told him once I meet Eli, I can die happy.
Yeah, it's very good.
Totally different topic.
Thank you.
But then he told me, but no, that's why I asked you, I asked you that question.
Yeah.
But you can go ahead. But yeah, we
It's
can't.
okay.
We can't talk.
We're going to see you,
I'll see
week
you
14?
After the season, we'll see who's on top, and then
But
maybe
Tony-
if I'm on top, I'll talk.
But thank you, I'm gonna mention that because that what happened to me,
Yeah.
the meditation.
Meditation.
And so
Meditation.
there were a lot of people, and then especially people of color don't really think, cause I know I was at work, and they had 2 people, she was a Filipino lady and a Hispanic lady, went to a meditation class. She said, I was bored because we didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
They came back more stressed.
That's why
I
yoga.
said, all right, but you're supposed to relax.
Yeah.
Now they're the most stressful people at work, and everyone at work be wondering why they always come. I said, because you learn how to breathe, you realize it's not about you.
Something to learn, and practice.
Yeah, that's
That's what I
what,
was telling him, because he mentioned everything but meditation, but a lot of people of color don't hear meditation.
That's a good point.
that's sure.
And so that's why I asked her, because that helped me the most.
I-
And that was just a topic that I was so stressed at work because I was at the sheriff department. And I read, and it doesn't matter what they're doing, they say, you always calm.
Yeah, because when you meditate,
You
and
learn to center.
Yep.
And
That's
that's
what
why
I did.
I was gonna ask you that question, but I said, well, he didn't even mention nothing about meditation. And I said, that should be a good time.
Yeah. No.
Fourth,
I,
you're
hey,
our fourth speaker.
And I'm just asking you because
no, because in all honesty, it is something that a
we
class.
need to be we need to bring it to special African Americans because I know it came by me because I was just so stressed. And someone said, why don't you try meditation? I said, well, I'm the first time we're trying new
Yep.
things.
We naturally walk around with a
Right.
higher heart rate than.
But you can breathe and then you do meditation and everything. You eat, sleep, everything. And it
I
calms you
measure
down.
like it's called your resting heart rate. That's how you know you're centered. So like when I'm at home and I'm in bed, my heart rate's at 32.
Whoa.
My wife being a nurse, she like looks at it. She's like, "What?" Yeah, I'm at 32. She's like, "I'm at 60 and I'm laying down." And I'm like, "Because you're always stressed out."
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm not. When I wake up, I'm kind of, all right, here we
And
go."
maybe you should get up and maybe mention to because
I will.
that's really helped me. And we don't get that because I talk to people meditation. What meditation?
Yeah.
But it was just $200 and she taught me the best. And she told me that anything you're going through,
Meditation.
your
I
body
forgot to mention that.
go through.
I'm gonna run to
She
the
said your
bathroom
body
before
go
it's too late.
through everything. Even if you're not doing anything, you're still doing it.
See, you didn't
She
tell me
told me,
about
she
the
said, Brenda,
PowerPoint.
cut the tape.
I could have had a
She
whole
said, if it ever happened
PowerPoint.
the way you thought,
You know I like
if the
making
answer is no,
graphs.
then don't think about it, just let it happen.
Oh, I didn't think that.
See what she said?
Yeah.
Tony, you
So
just
she said, cut the tape. I tell everybody that. Everyone was following that. And they said, you need to teach this. I said, no, I'm not telling you what, for $200, I learned that.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, because your body still thinks in here, it's still going through it regardless of where you move. So cut the, cut the tape. So now when I did ask him that because he mentioned everything but meditation, so I just want to know.
Super important.
Well, that was fun.
I'm bringing up the rear. Okay. I'm going to stay here because I'm going to reference my laptop too.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and reconvene and get started again. Next, we will have Ms. Allison Mendez. She's been a nurse for over 20 years. She has a background in oncology and case management, and her current role is nurse navigator at the Carroll Hatton Breast Care Center in Monterey. She has a passion for nutrition as it relates to individual, community, and planetary health. She recently completed her master's degree in public health with a particular interest in public health ethics and is certified in plant-based nutrition. So please give a round of applause for Ms. Allison as she comes with the presentation.
Thank you, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. And I'm bringing up the rear, so bear with me. I'm going to stay here and reference my slides because I was working late last night and I added a couple more, so you won't see everything, but I'll just talk about what I added. So the tips that I'm going to share with you are just about reducing your risk. They are from the Carroll Hatton Breast Care Center, which is part of CHOMP. They were posted this month for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and then I'm just going to highlight and add to a few of them. So these are the 8 tips to reduce your risk. Get regular mammograms, we talked about that, annual screening. Get active, Tony did a great presentation on that. Limit alcohol, Maria also talked about that, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more. Quit smoking, don't start if you don't. Keeping a healthy weight. Breastfeeding is also another really important component of reducing your risk for the mamas. Consider your birth control options, something to talk about with your provider, and eating a healthy, balanced diet. So the highlighted ones that you see here are the ones that I'm going to concentrate on, if you can see it on the slide that it's highlighted. So with alcohol, the more you drink, the greater your risk, just across the board. The American Cancer Society says that alcohol contributes to about 6% of cancers in the US. This is all cancers, not just breast, so liver, stomach, mouth, colon. Any reduction in your intake improves your risk. So, and that's with nutrition too. Like, any small changes matter. You don't have to be perfect, none of us are, but small weight losses, small nutrition changes, small reductions in alcohol, it all matters. And then likewise, any small amounts of increased alcohol can also contribute to an increased risk. And part of the reason that research is suggesting that alcohol can raise estrogen levels, which are a risk factor for breast cancer. It can also be an irritant to other tissues. It causes damage to your DNA, leads to oxidative stress. It can also interfere with absorption of various vitamins in our food. So it's definitely a risk factor. And then Maria also talked about some of the the sizes of a serving size. And so there, if you can see that on the slide there, according to the CDC, past studies have suggested, which gets a little confusing, that moderate alcohol intake can have health benefits. We've probably heard about wine and heart health. Bigger studies, longer studies, more recent studies are suggesting that that's actually not true. So if you don't drink, don't start, and if you can cut back, do so. Eating a healthy, balanced diet. I mean, we're told, eat healthy. What does that mean? It's confusing. Data is all over the place. I mean, we read, keto diets, high fat, low fat, high calorie, intermittent fasting. It's all over the place. And a whole other talk on why nutrition data is so confusing. I mean, we could spend an hour, but I think across the board, experts agree that eating more fruits and vegetables will help. So loading up is one sure way to reduce your risk. In general, the darker the color, the higher the antioxidants. So your dark leafy greens, reds, yellows, all the bright colors. The more color a fruit or vegetable has, the better it is for you. And as far as just, we don't want to not enjoy our food. Some things, we just don't want to try, so it's important to introduce new things, maybe share something new with a family or a friend. Focus on what you can add rather than what you need to maybe cut back on. One thing that I've recommended is, so often our side dishes are our fruits and vegetables. Make that your main dish and make your main dish your side dish. Kind of reverse the ratios on your plate can help you bulk up on some of the fruits and vegetables. Eating mindfully, taking your time. Don't eat in front of the TV, your phone, your computer. One of the audience members talked about meditation. Meditation can be incorporated into your meal, really, feel some gratitude for your food, how it's nourishing your body, and I think, it'll slow you down, it'll help you consume a little bit less. So just being mindful about what you're eating and what the food is doing for you is as important as how it tastes too. And I think, just slowing down and being mindful. Focusing on fiber is so important. Fiber also helps you feel full longer. I did add a slide on fiber that I don't think is in here, so I'll read some of that too. So fueling up on fiber, you cannot see this slide. So adding high fiber foods does lower your cancer risk. High fiber foods tend to be our fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, legumes, all of those nutrient-rich foods, which also contain a lot of antioxidants, which helps combat inflammatory changes in our bodies. Many of these foods are also high in protein. Another topic too, but we are told to eat your protein, eat your protein, eat your protein. Americans are not protein deficient. We are fiber deficient. We get plenty of protein. In fact, breast milk is only about 5% protein, and that is a time in a person's life where you're growing so fast, yet breast milk has this much protein. We get too much. Unless you have major digestive changes, such as you're missing a big section of your colon or you had to have your stomach removed, we're talking major digestive changes where, protein does, that's a small portion of the population. We get plenty. All food has protein. Fiber helps with weight control. It helps you feel full longer. It helps lower cholesterol, stabilize blood sugar. And the daily recommendation is 25 to 30 grams a day. Most Americans get about half of that. So we need to definitely look at that. Processed and red meats. According to the American Cancer Society, also you don't see this slide, so I'll just read this. Processed meats such as sausage, bacon, hot dogs, lunch meats are classified as human carcinogens. Red meat is considered probable, whereas the processed meats are carcinogens, meaning they can cause cancer in our bodies. And it's the preservatives in the processed meats, such as nitrates and nitrites, as well as the heme iron, that leads to the cellular changes in your body that can lead to cancer occurring. And then, we add insult to injury when we take those processed meats and then we expose them to high heat. So smoking, grilling, curing, cooking them at really high temperatures just accelerates the unfortunate process. So alternatives to some of those meats, choose poultry, fish, beans. I love beans. I think everybody should try to get in about a cup a day, work up to it. But they're little nutrition powerhouses. In my house, I tell my kids that Larry is the gentle lentil, and we try to eat a lot of it every day. So let's see. Maintaining a healthy weight. This may be another slide. Oh, yay, it's there. So obesity and breast cancer. Obesity is defined as a BMI of 30 or greater. I just recently completed my master's degree, and my thesis was on obesity and breast cancer. Jennifer did not know that when she asked me to speak to you today, so it was kind of serendipitous, but I have studied this topic a lot. I focused on postmenopausal women, and so Maria talked about that a bit too, on being female. We're all getting older. Some things we cannot control, but many things we can. So our weight is one of them, and you don't have to make these huge changes, but little gradual changes, and be forgiving of yourself. We're all going to, wax and wane, and I think slow, wide turns are the best turns. We don't have to, set ourselves up to fail by making sudden, sharp turns as far as the changes in our body. So BMI of 30 or greater is considered obese. Waist to hip ratio needs to also be considered. Calculating your waist to hip ratio is very easy. You just divide your waist circumference by your hip circumference. And the number that you get, if it's 0.85 or greater, this is your typical apple body shape. That is considered to be a higher risk. Higher risk for metabolic diseases, so that's where, your type 2 diabetes, heart disease, a lot of the lifestyle, truly preventable diseases, you're at higher risk for those. Breast cancer, any cancers are linked to, you know, that, that risk, setting the stage for inflammatory changes in the body. So obesity affects hormone levels, promotes cell and blood vessel growth, increases inflammation in the body, and it's linked to very complex chemical processes. That takes time, and I think one of the questions that we had a little bit ago was about stress and the time frames, and chronic stress causes little inflammatory changes in the body. Cells, our bodies are smart, and we start, we can fix a lot of these changes along the way, but as time goes by, it just becomes a little bit difficult for our body to always be in that fight mode, which is why symptoms can often be delayed. And that is basically the gist of what I wanted to share, and then just, really reinforce that all small changes matter. Tony also talked about a little bit of community, working together. I think that's one thing in our culture collectively that we've lost. We try to do everything on our own all the time, and we define ourselves by what we alone can do, but it takes a village. We need each other. People need to work together. I think we're oftentimes more accountable to other people than we are to ourselves. So reaching out to whatever your network of support is so important, and that will reduce stress when you do things together. And it's fun, make friends and just enhance that camaraderie. I'm always trying to just get to know our neighbors, having my kids know whose house they can go to if I'm running late, who can help get them on the bus. As a mom with that stress always lingering, we need to know who we can count on. So I'm open to any questions. I'm going to put up my email address too. I like one-on-one. I like individual questions and sharing any information. I really love being a resource. Public speaking is not my comfort zone, but I really appreciate Jennifer asking me to come.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there some type of coalition where the breast care center and maybe some of these food places can get together? We talk about fruit and vegetables, we talk about eating healthy, but stuff is high. I'm single, and I buy 2 beets, 5 apples, 5 pears, and carrot,
Yeah.
and that's $100.
So expensive.
If you got a boatload of two children is a boatload these days, but if you have children, you absolutely cannot afford to do the 5 servings a
It's
day.
expensive.
So
Yeah.
while we know it's important, folks need help in,
Yeah.
Gas is high. I pay $400 a month in gas to get to work, just to get to work.
Wow.
And so, hence the 1 meal a day.
Right. Okay.
You can't afford it, so there needs to be some type of coalition between somebody to make it healthier or easier or cheaper for people with children.
Yeah.
You got 3 children, get a quarter of an apple a day.
I know.
That's not it, so.
I know.
I know we talk about what we need to do, but somebody needs to help us do what we need to do.
I think, and I wish I knew specifics on access to fresh fruits and vegetables. I think the farmers markets are trying to help with increasing access and affordability. I mentioned loving beans. Beans and legumes are so inexpensive. You can buy a bag of lentils for $2 and make a huge pot of soup. And that's what I do, and that's what my kids pack for lunch. It's so cheap to make bean soups, and I'm happy to share recipes. Canned beans are a little bit more expensive than dried, So I do cook my own, part of it from a waste perspective. You know, my little bio includes planetary health, so I hate food waste. So I do cook everything from scratch. I cook a lot, I love to cook. But beans are one of the cheapest foods you can buy, and they are nutritional powerhouses. So, so important. So yes, the fresh fruits and vegetables are expensive. Frozen is fine, totally fine. So finding good recipes with dried beans or canned beans. Nutritionally, they're about the same. Canned, I would get a low salt or no salt version, usually about $1 a can. So you can get a can or a bag, say, of lentils. When you cook it, is probably about 4 cans worth. So it's more, or it's about a quarter of the price when you break it down. So I think that from a cost savings, that's probably my biggest tip that comes to mind. But it's very cheap to cook dried beans. And if you also factor in, you know, the cost of prescription medications and healthcare and the duration of, you know, healthy habits, I mean, I think we can see changes fairly quickly with our bowels, with, you know, making those healthful changes. Great question.
Very good question.
Yeah.
I just heard you say that frozen is fine. Always remember hearing that fresh is best. So what would we be missing if we went to the frozen side?
Some of the antioxidants do break down. Fiber and the low calorie factor and the antioxidants are all still intact. A lot of the frozen vegetables are steamed before they're frozen, and as you cook, some of the antioxidants are lost, but still a ton there. Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Thank you.
Let's give Ms. Allison a hand. Today through our event, we learned so much about stopping the silence against breast cancer, learning exactly what breast cancer is, with our first presentation from Ms. Maria about the abnormal cells, and how that it can grow, or the threats that occur to those cells as time goes on. And we've learned about the genetic risk for breast cancer as well. We've learned about how we can use the activity that we involve ourselves in to help prevent not just cancers but other ailments through the presentation with Tony. And we've gotten a lot of questions about fitness and classes, and so hopefully you have some contact information you can leave with us as well. And then other preventive measures that we can take for breast cancer as well through the presentation from Ms. Allison. One thing that came to mind as I was sitting there and listening to our presentations today was how we can use some of our own practices in order to incorporate them into our daily lives, some of the things that we already do. I heard a mention about meditation. That means we can actually take the grace that we say before we eat. We'll actually take the time to say grace, to mindfully consider what it is that you're about to eat, not just in the practice of your religion, but in a practice of being mindful of how you're eating, what you're eating, and how much in front of you is what is in the state that God made it. Considering those things as well as we, in our daily course, that don't take up any extra time, but it's something that we likely already do that we can incorporate into our daily process. There was a sign-in sheet, so if you did provide your email address, then we can follow up with some more resources as they're shared from our panelists and other that are shared with us, and we'll be more than happy to share those with you as well. I did want to take a moment to acknowledge our soror president, annually, co-sponsored by the city of Seaside, and so we celebrate longevity. The people that have done all that you have described to be 80-plus years young. And so we're inviting you now, so we'll give you the date so you can put it on your calendar. And now as I close, stand up, Madam Chair, stand up. Let's give her a big round. I have something that's going to help her relax, some socks that was given, and they are breast cancer focused. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, committee members, for the work that you've done. And this is just the beginning of what the message that we want to really share with the community as an organization. We have what we call programmatic breast, which is looking at physical, mental health, and now we are going to carry it forward thanks to the wonderful work of this committee. Let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you so much, and we'll have Ms. Jennifer Allen.
Yeah.
I am so thankful. I have to say, when I asked each of panel guests to speak, they were just like, yeah, all right. And then I had a vision that, oh, just put up some flyers and send it out to my sorors. And I thought, no, I can put together a workshop. And I reached out to my wife and said, help me. And they did. So I'm so thankful. But I have to read some statistics from CDC because this is what encourages me. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, compared to white women, black women develop cancer at a lower rate. However, black women die at a substantially higher rate, 40% to be exact. Black women under age 35 get breast cancer at 2 times the rate of white women and die from breast cancer 3 times as often as white women. I want to do better. I want to be an agent of change. And so it starts with us. And that's why I wanted to have this workshop. That's why I wanted the experts here. And I'm so thankful to them for willing to speak and educate us. So thank you all. I want to thank Knowledge Community Hospital Comprehensive Cancer Center. I asked my director, I said, what's my budget? I need this, I need this. What, Jennifer? Okay, just give me just one thing about me, I do not mind asking for money, no. You need some money for raising, you call me, but I do not mind asking for money. So I'm so thankful, and Carol had the Breast Care Center, and I'm gonna mess up, Nancy Asano, Mammography Center. I called each of the centers I called, they were willing to give me whatever I need. And Costco, they gave me a gift card, and Tony agreed to come and speak, and he's also gonna offer some passes.
Yes.
So, and I just thank the team that helped me, Dominique and this girl. She does work on the side, I need a virtual office person. And thank you, Valencia. I'm so, and Nicole, she's not here, but I am just so thankful and Mariana that they just stepped up and just helped me with whatever I needed. So thank you so much. Thank you. All right, hopefully you all enjoyed, if not enjoyed, our morning to get the information. We really appreciate everyone that was here. We want to thank you all for coming. If you're interested in getting the information, it is streaming live on Facebook, so you can check it out on Greater Victory Temple Church website, Greater Victory Temple Church Facebook page, if you want to review the information that was given. And quick thank you again to our family members. So how do we get these free passes?
We could talk afterwards.
Well, make sure you negotiate with Tony.
You don't need it. Whoa. Hold on. There's no negotiation needed. Anyone in this room will get a free month to my gym. you know, like I said, I'm about giving back. It's not about money comes and goes, but we're only here for a short amount of time. So, you know, it's all about helping the community, and it starts just getting out there. You know, like I tell all the clients, you start here, you progress to something else, but don't stop. So, see me after.
So there are some information tables right outside these doors, and the refreshment area is opening back up. So there is, please help yourselves. There's plenty of bagels and coffee and juice. So please help yourselves to that. And above all, just take the information that you received and hope that you are able to address breast cancer and the risk from a place of greater knowledge, and to share that information with someone else. That's so incredibly important. So on behalf of Delta Sigma Theta, the non-resident alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, thank you for being here. If you did not sign in, please, there's a sign-in sheet in the library when we get your information, because there will be other events sponsored by Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Minor Peninsula Alumni chapter. We would love for you all to be a part. Please see us if you have interest in any part of the peninsula, of Minor Peninsula Alumni chapter or Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We'd be happy to share that information with you. And with that, I just want to say a word of prayer and thanks, and you are dismissed. Father, we thank you for blessing us to be here. We thank you for the knowledge that we have received. We know that knowledge is power. We pray that you will help us to make better decisions, better choices, to address our breast cancer risk, to do the things that we need to do to be safer for ourselves and for our family, to share this information that we receive with those that we love, so that we can all be healthier and safer in addressing breast cancer and other cancer risks. We thank you, Lord, for our speakers. We thank you for the organizer, and just for the opportunity to come and be empowered with this information. And we go here with one